I'm Chris Duke, and this is Motorz. One of the more challenging installs that'll make a vehicle owner open up his wallet and run to a shop is a car alarm installation. But here at Motorz, we're not afraid to try anything, including that. And despite not finding any information online but a stock wiring diagram, we think we figured it all out. So today on Motorz, we're going to install a Viper 5900 car alarm system on our 2008 Ford Mustang GT, which came from the factory without a stock alarm system. The installation of any car alarm system is extremely difficult, and the Viper 5900 is no exception. There's just a lot to hook up, but we're going to show you how to do it. The kit comes with the main harness right here, comes with a relay harness, a siren and a hood pin that goes underneath the hood, a two-way remote. This thing will work from up to a mile away from your vehicle, a shock sensor, and an antenna. Now, you can refer to the manual. It tells you what each wire is for, but you're going to need to pair that with the information that you get from your stock wiring diagram to figure out where that goes inside your vehicle. Now, we already did that with all of these wires. We labeled which one goes to the junction box and which one goes to the ignition area and which color wire it connects to. The tools you're going to need for this alarm installation include a flashlight, a power drill. You need a couple drill bits, one for the hood pin and a smaller one for drilling some pilot holes for that siren. Some dikes and some wire strippers. You're going to need some extra wiring, some electrical tape, a couple of screwdrivers, your Phillips and flat blade. You need a Torx 2.5 bit, some tape to mark your wiring, a crescent wrench, some solder, a soldering iron, and some heat shrink tubing, or you can do what we are going to do and use some posi taps. You're also going to need a 10mm deep socket and a series of sockets ranging from 6mm all the way to 10. Once you've disconnected the positive lead off your battery terminal, it's time to get to all the wiring inside. Now, this is a very complex installation, so we actually installed this alarm the other day to make sure it was operational and make sure that what we show you is correct. Now, there's a ton of wires here. There's a whole bunch that go over near the ignition area underneath the steering column. There's a whole bunch that go over here by the smart junction box, which is in the passenger side kick panel. To get there, you need to pop off this sill plate that's right here. Once you've got that out of the way, the kick panel also just pops off. There's your smart junction box right in there. You're going to need to get a 10mm deep socket to get that off because we do need to connect a whole bunch of wires behind there. The SJB is just kind of hung on there at the top with some clips, so you need to pull it out and unclip it off the top. We need to get behind this junction box here, but there's this harness in the way. So pinch both sides of this, flip this down, and this guy comes out. All these wires are what you need to get to. And obviously, since we already installed this alarm to make sure that we're showing you what is correct, we have all these posi taps connected to the correct wires. Now, these posi taps make it real easy to work in tight situations like this, where the wires from the OEM are short and you don't have much room to work with. Now, normally, the best way to do this would be using solder and some heat shrink tubing and everything else. But these posi taps are just as good. Once you've got that in there, tug on it a little bit to make sure that it's not going to come out. Now, we're going to go ahead and hook up the rest of the wires here behind the smart junction box. Once we're done with that, we're going to hook up the brain and the shock sensor, and then we're going to go take a look at the wiring over in the ignition area. Now, if you've got a 2005 to 2009 Mustang without a stock alarm system, refer to the following information. But if you do have a stock alarm system, you're going to need to bypass that first. With all the wires connected to the back of the SJB, we've got to route the siren wire, the 12-volt power that we need, as well as the hood pin and this wiring harness for the ignition area. We need to route all of this on over behind the dash right back here. And when it comes time to wrapping up everything here on the passenger side, you want to take your brain and you want to hide that somewhere out of sight so nobody that's breaking into your vehicle can find it. Hide all the wiring, and you want to take your shock sensor and you want to mount that onto something metal so when someone hits your car, it'll vibrate and trip the alarm. And finally, we're going to take this cable, we're going to route it up the A-pillar up to the headliner where we're going to mount the antenna. We mounted the antenna right here behind the rear view mirror, and the way we get the wire back there is just pull down this headliner a little bit and stuff that wire up there all the way over to the side. This piece of plastic that's on the A-pillar, that just pops off and the wire goes down the side behind the dash. Over underneath the steering column, there's two Torx 2.5 screws. You need to remove those in order to get this bottom plastic panel off. Now here underneath the steering column, the ignition side's right over here on the right where you put your key. The starter side's over here on the left side. There's a whole bunch of wires back here and a wiring harness. What you want to do is press the clip that's right over here on the outside of that and pull that harness on out. As you can see, we now have easy access to all the wiring. As you can also see, we've already got all these posi taps on here because we wired it already. Now we just need to connect our wires up. As it comes from the factory, this green wire right here needs to be cut, which we already did, and we put two posi taps on there. Because with this particular application, this Viper alarm, we need to connect up this purple wire to the starter side, and this green wire goes up to the ignition side wire. Now go ahead and make the rest of your connections, and then hide your wiring. To connect the hood pin and the siren, which needs to be out inside the engine compartment, we had to find a hole through the firewall. We found a grommet located just below the brake booster. We were able to poke a hole through the carpet to get some new wire through, connected up to our wires that are going to our alarm. With all of our wiring inside done, we need to hook up the siren and the hood pin in the engine compartment. So the siren is going to go right up here against the firewall. Going to mount it right there facing down, and then our hood pin is going to go right here in our pinch weld.
Parts, brought to you by Hellwig Products, adjustable sway bars for over 60 years.
One of the things we're often criticized about using on the show are these butt connectors when it comes time to do our wiring on the electrical aspects of a vehicle. Now the criticism is that they're not that safe to use because the wire can sometimes pull out, which is true if you don't pinch it hard enough. Now the correct way to do it would be to use solder and heat shrink tubing, but that requires a whole bunch of extra effort that we just don't have time for when we're shooting a show. We're trying to get it done. So we found a product called Posi Tap, and it's from a company called Posi Products. And the way that it works is that instead of crimping it like in a traditional butt connector, is it's pinched with a twist-on type of method. Now it comes in different sizes, like this 10 to 12 gauge, a 12 to 18 gauge, and a 20 to 22 gauge. I'm going to show you how this works. You take your wire that would be typically inside your vehicle, you untwist that, you slide your wire over it like that, and then you twist it on. Now, this is the wire that's typically inside your vehicle. You really can't get to. It's up underneath the dashboard or in a tight spot inside the engine compartment. That's the one that you want to pinch it to. You take your other wire, the one that you want to connect it to, and you strip the end of it a little bit. You push it in, and then you connect that by twisting that on, just like that. And once you've got that, you cannot pull that out, and this does not slide. It's pinched in there pretty good. So that's what we're probably going to be using from now on. Hopefully we won't be criticized. I recommend that you check it out. Go to www.posi-products.com and check out the Posi Taps as well as their other line of products that are similar to this one. You have the option of programming the system, but all the factory defaults were just fine for us. Now, installing a car alarm is basically the same for all vehicles. Where it gets really tricky is figuring out the OEM wiring. That's where we turn to the12volt.com for their help, as well as Mike Miller at San Diego Car Stereo. Well, that does it for this episode of Motorz. For more episodes, head on over to www.motorz.tv and be sure to request a free sticker for your ride and check out our forums. Resistance is futile. This is what... Are you following me, camera guy? Now go ahead and make the rest of your connections and hire the wiring. Hire the wiring. Yeah, I know the word. What are you doing? Holding my microphone. PausyProducts.com. That's www. Drill scene, take 30.